Yo, what's up, fam? We've got an absolute killer of a stock reporting earnings next week. Is Supermicro Computers. Now, there has been so much going on around about Supermicro Computers over the last many months. I can't be more excited about this particular stock. One, this stock has been on an absolute tear from a financial perspective, from a stock performance perspective. Its volatility used to be really, really high before, and there's been a whole lot of shenanigans about this stock. But first of all, what do supermicrocomputers do? Supermicrocomputers make server and storage products that are essential to put together these data centers. Now, data centers and high performance computing has been the talk of town until recently in the artificial intelligence space. Artificial intelligence needs high compute power, and high compute power needs big data center projects, and big data center equipment, and a lot of investments in that space. Now, why does supermicrocomputers actually stand out versus competitors? Number one, supermicrocomputer is a lot smaller. Supermicrocomputers' closest competitor is Dell, HP, and the likes. More Dell than HP. With versus Dell, which Dell is a massive enterprise. Supermicrocomputers is competitive advantage is one plug and play, and that's basically synonymous to going live in data center project in the matter of days instead of weeks. They also have been not sort of pioneering, but they've been really taking on board the liquid cooling technology, which basically means that the data centers that they're involved in will consume less electricity, and therefore they're more efficient, which essentially lowers the cost for their customers. Their customers are data center high performance computing companies on the other side, hyperscale customers like AWS, Microsoft Azure, GCP, and the likes. And their revenue performance has been nothing like the ordinary. I think in the last 3 quarters, they've clocked more than 150% year-on-year growth per quarter. I think the lowest has been 140 and the highest has been 200. Now, backdrop for supermicrocomputers has not been the best. Supermicrocomputers was recently part of a short investigation, and that didn't go really well at all. So Hindenburg was one of the short sellers that took a massive short position on that stock and released a short report. And so since the Nasdaq inclusion in July, so it's sort of essential to kind of look at it from a timeline perspective. July 2024, Supermicrocomputers gets inducted into the Nasdaq 100, one of the ETFs for the best of the best. They knock out Walgreens, and the stock responds accordingly. Um, August of 2024, Hindenburg comes in with this short report. I think October of 2024, EY resigns as the auditor, and it's essentially a validation of Hindenburg's report that perhaps the malpractice claims, perhaps the export practice claims, the shoddy rehire claims, RevRec accounting inaccuracies were all true, and people start to sell the stock. Market goes into panic, and there's a little bit of overshadow on some of the other semi stocks, namely Nvidia. Um, um, and in November though, Super Microcomputers turns things around. The bulls stick around, and they appoint their new auditor in BDO. Stock responds accordingly. In somewhere in the middle, Nasdaq tells them that, hey, you guys, by the way, you guys haven't really filed your annual report or subsequent quarterly reports, and if you don't file, then you will be delisted. Although Super Microcomputers gets an extension, and now their extension deadline is in the end of February, so they really do have to file an annual report. Supermicro Computers does a little bit of provides a little bit of a reprieve to the bulls, though. They provide a business update. So it's not a financial report, but they do provide a business update. And last quarter was the first quarter that they provided that business update, and it was actually really good. They did miss revenue by a little bit, but the revenue performance was still pretty solid. And they did increase their gross profit margin over the last quarter, in that last quarter, which they had filed their quarterly report. And so things are looking a little bit better than the time that Hindenburg had filed that short report. Stock responds accordingly, so it hits 49 before it starts to retreat again. And so there's that kind of big sort of volatile backdrop that we're dealing with in Supermicro Computers, and that's why I really like the stock, because I really like volatility. Now, what are the risks for supermicro computers? This is something that I've observed in all of these supermicro computer calls. One, the synergy between Charles, who's the CEO, and David, who's the CFO, isn't really the best. A lot of times they kind of sometimes they kind of talk over each other. They're not really in sync in the story. Charles will sometimes answer for David, and David will sometimes take a very conservative view or provide a very conservative opinion about the outlook for the company. And I think Charles is a little bit too sort of focused on the top line versus also be focused on the bottom line, because at the end of the day, the company has got to make money. And not that they're not making money, but they're he sort of gives you the impression that margin is the third or the fourth thing on his mind. Revenue is the first thing on his mind. Now that is true, but at the end of the day, you can't dilute your margins to next to nothing, because they're not a retail company. They are selling hardware. They're selling to enterprise customers. So that's my take on the risks. Also, their the volatility in terms of estimates or actuals versus guidance are kind of huge. So that's the backdrop in the risk that we're dealing with. Now, why do I actually like the stock, and why do I think I would place a bet on the stock? I think because of the tailwinds. Number one, since Hindenburg have actually come up with a short report, since E&Y left them, they appointed BDO. They appointed the special committee, and the special committee said there's no evidence of any malpractice. There's no evidence of any shoddy rehires. Our RevRec accounting, we've not found any flaws, and they appointed this new auditor, right, in BDO. They've also strategically upped their PR game. You'll see specific days when when semi industry gets a bid, that there's an article about a good partnership between Supermicro Computers and Nvidia, or Supermicro Computers and Intel. Today they came up with a piece of news that Blackwell chips production has fully ramped. Another strategic PR post, and that led the stock rise by about 10% today. So they've really upped their game in that area. Um, the other tailwind for me is that we're coming on the backs of Meta's earnings call. We're coming on the backs of Google's earnings call and Microsoft's earnings call. Um, Amazon's yet to provide their earnings actuals through their calls, but I believe that Q4, the those big four have collectively would have spent about $65 billion in capex just in that quarter alone. That directly feeds into Supermicro Computers' revenue, and what that multiple is, we'll find out. But I have a good gauge for what that might be. And so I think Supermicro Computers will actually uh, come out of this quarter, which is their second quarter 2025, at $6.3 billion in revenue and earnings per share of 63 cents. That is a really, really good, that would still be a really, really good result for this quarter. And they don't provide an outlook. They don't have to provide an outlook for the next year, and they won't at all, because they're still in the middle of their fiscal year. But we do have an idea of what these big fours are going to spend in their next year, which is their 2025, and it's nothing short of it's nothing sort of magnificent. Google is going to be spending collectively around $75 billion in capex. Meta is going to be spending about $50 billion in capex. We're talking about increases of about 20-30% to about 50% in capex over 2024. So the outlook seems to be really bullish for this company only if they get their in-house in order, and only if they were able to file their extension. If they don't, sorry, file their annual reports and their quarterly reports. If they don't file their annual and quarterly reports, they get delisted from Nasdaq. It's not like everything is over still for this stock, but there is this massive risk still on looming on the head of Supermicro Computers. My take, and from a price chart perspective, there is this resistance that the stocks providing at about 39 and then 49, and there's a support around 30 and 25. So those are the key levels for Supermicro Computers. What would I do? What do I recommend for this stock? At this point, you have nothing to lose in a bull option play. Spreads provide a great alternative if you want to hedge your risk. But with volatilities, weekly volatilities well over 150%, I'd say, and their prices around their support levels, I'd say this is a bull option play. Happy trading, and let's see what happens with Supermicro Computers next week.